Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to Dungeonology the Expedition. This is video part 2. We're going to start going over the actual individual cards. We're going to start looking at the characters, the trick cards. Just take a little bit better look at each individual component. If you missed part 1, we did an overview. It's quite a long video. I went through, shut off all the different components, and then kind of did a walkthrough of what the game was through the rulebook, not hitting every exact thing as a full how to play, but it was a general over. But again, it's an hour long because there's a lot of content in this game to go over. But that being said, there's some of it that was designed that came out later. In case you didn't watch the video, just a brief overview of what it is there was also some stuff in the game. They went from the original core set into when they released the Kickstarter stuff, which came out in a wave 2, which is updated on their web app as well, the Ludus Madness Studios web app. Just kind of explain there's some of the components of the game you can take out and not play with right away. So you can play with like the core part of the game, and then you can add in some other more difficult stuff later to make the game a little bit easier to break it down. But what is Dungeonology? So the whole core of it is you're playing these 4 adventures, which also happen to be the 4 main adventures in Nova Eicus. This is part of the Nova Eicus Chronicles, so if we flip to the back. And you're playing as scholars as part of the Rocca Civetta, in Italia, Italy. And you're going through and you're trying to find and research various creatures. So each thing will have you trying to do a research paper or a thesis on a specific creature that you'll choose. There's 3 of them available in this game, more available in expansions, by searching through the different, kind of doing a dungeon crawl. But rather than fighting things and battling, you're just doing research and you're trying to stealthily get in and get information about these creatures while competing with your fellow students, your fellow scholars, rather. You might steal information from them trying to get your paper in first. So it's very interesting. You can add in additional things like boss mode, so you can have a boss be wandering around, be causing more trouble and mayhem for everybody. You can add panic mode. You can up the difficult panic mode, which changes the end of the game to, instead of just being like, I finished, now everyone else has a couple of turns to finish, to adding some inducing stuff or difficulty or twist to the game that's going to make it harder at the end of the game, which is pretty cool. As well as all the main trick cards. Another advanced mode is you can take just some of the basic components out on them and use them normally, or you can add in the central part of the cards, which we'll talk more about when we get to those cards. I'll explain that a little bit more in depth. But you can basically, easy mode, you can remove the main ability of the cards and just use the icons, or you can add in the main ability to add a bunch of new effects. So lots of interesting stuff. The world's going to obviously change every direction when you're playing it, because it is randomly drawing tiles. Yeah, lots of really interesting, cool stuff in there. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and hop into this. This is probably going to be a multi-part video as well. I'm going to go through the hero. We're going to go through the 4 characters first, look at their skills and abilities. We're going to look at the boss. And I think we're going to look at some of the other little stacks of cards and components, and we'll see if we have time to get into the trick cards. I think I might do them in a second video, just because there is a decent stack of them, and it might just be easier to do that as a separate video. So, alright, let's head in and look at who we have. Alright, so first of all, each character is going to get a board. Now, the boards are kind of linked to be for theming for each of the 4 characters visually, but it doesn't actually make any difference regardless otherwise. You can pick any character, whether it's these characters or one from an expansion, and use them on any board, and it's not going to make a difference. They all have the exact same information on them. So we're going to start off with, we have our squire here. So we have Valerio. So, like, these tokens do not want to, or these boards do not want to actually stay together very well. Like, I just picked this up and it's just popped off. So I might have to find better ways to hold this together. But we'll worry about that's my problem. I might be doing something wrong there. So on your board here, this is your your full notepad, this is how you keep track of all the different aspects you're trying to do throughout the game. So before I actually get more into the character, as you find research, if you find green cubes, you're going to add them to there. If you find red information cubes, which they each have a different thing, you're going to put them there. We have some blue ones, oops, yellow ones, and the ever rare purple ones, even though that looks pink. And as you go up on the field, you're going to gain more and more points. You have to hit 2 stars total throughout a combination of any of them to go into the end game, to complete your thesis. So obviously green is a little bit easier to get. There's more green cubes. And the other ones are going to be a little bit harder to get. But of course, you need less of them to get your goals. And then when you get them, you can turn them in and do different points and stuff. So there's that. So all the boards, like I said, are asymmetrical, but each character card is different. So on each character card, you're going to have stats that line up at the bottom. Each little icon on there is going to be a different symbol explaining what it does. I'm going to get back up my big giant rule book here. I just wanted a reminder on what each one of those symbols means. Alright, so for the first one here, we have low students. A student value indicates the number of students taken from a reserve at the start of the game, or when you're replenishing them during the rest phase. So Valeria goes back up to 4, starts with 4 students, which are these little tiny guys here. And we get a bunch of these. They play a lot of effects. Sometimes you're gaining more of them, using them to sacrifice to distract other players, to distract the boss, just for playing cards. They're your one little thing to sacrifice. The next one with the hand is your hand size. This is how many cards you can have. You must have at the end of the turn. You can always have more than this, but at the end of your turn, you'll always draw back up to that at least. The boot is your speed, representing the number of wind zones scholars can travel. Unless you're using a special ability, so you can move up to 4 spots. We have these little glass, like magnifying glass type things. These are your intelligence. Indicate the number of information cubes a scholar can try to collect during their study. So this is where everyone's going to start to kind of differ. Some guys might be able to have more or less students. Some might be able to have more cards in their hand, which gives them more options of stuff to do. Some guys can move quicker. Some guys can grab more cubes. Like he can only get 2 at a time, so he can get around the board a lot quicker, maybe play some higher value cards. But he can't take as many cubes as maybe some of the other players can. The next one, we have the little guy here. This is your stamina. This is basically how much essentially damage you can take. There's not really damage in here, but when you are discovered or certain things happen, you get stun tokens. And once you have the maximum moat, you have to go back to the main camp and rest, and refresh your hand and do all this other stuff, which you can do at any time if you like, just because you want to, but if you get that many, you have to. Again, some characters have higher stamina than others. Then the last one here is your knowledge combo. It says when a scholar has this combination of information cubes, receive a knowledge token to be placed on the knowledge slot, which is right up here. Once obtaining the token, not be lost. So he just has to collect a blue and a yellow one. So a little bit harder ones to get. Some of the other characters, again, have different combinations, which makes everyone a little bit unique. Alright, so we're going to look at the board for right now. Let's take a look at our miniature. So now, versus the Nova EX game, these guys are all a little bit more cartoony, or I guess is a term I'd want to say. They're not like goofy looking, but they're a little bit more family friendly. Like they're carrying like wooden swords and stuff. Definitely no less detailed. They just look a little bit more chubbyish and cartoony than the other miniatures for the other games. So if you have Noviectus or Black Rose Wars, which have a lot of crossover characters, these guys won't necessarily fit the look or aesthetic. Plus, they have these bigger bases on there. So just kind of a mention of that. Alright, so let's take a better look at his ability. I'm going to scooch my stuff down here. So, Avelio is a squire, so he has Headbutt. You can take one stun token. You can avoid this effect by sacrificing a student to target a scholar in your zone not targeted by the skill. To target a scholar in your zone not targeted by a skill during this turn, then choose one. So you can't headbutt the same person multiple times. Target scholar randomizes to drop an information cube, or the target scholar discards a random trick card, then you take that trick card. So he has the option of, when he's with another scholar, he can take stun tokens, stunning himself, or he can sacrifice a student, which would basically be like, instead of him headbutting, it's like him throwing one of the little student guys at the other people. So essentially you're doing is you're making them drop one of their information cubes. There's a special randomization deck that you'll just pick whichever random color, which has, again, more green than the other colors because it's the more common one. And we'll look at that a little bit more later in the video. Or they have to discard one of their trick cards, and their trick cards are going to be a bunch of different things. You have a notoriety, social, we have some generic ones. But yeah, exploration, subterfuge, and magic. So there's like 6 different types. Yeah, so it's kind of a neat little ability that he has. So one cool thing that's about the game is that you're trying to race to get to 2 stars. If any other player gets a star before, or has more stars than you, you enter the Enlightened stage, which then your character card flips over and you get new stats and new abilities. It's kind of like an upgrade. It's called Enlightened, but it's more of like an enraged mode. But it's a neat idea because it means if you're starting to lose, someone has more stars than you, whether you have 0 and they have 1, or you have 1 and they have 2, until you get back up to the same number of stars, you get extra abilities. So if we look at his numbers on the bottom, 44424. It goes up to 444624. So the only number that changes is the third one, which I believe is his speed. Yes. So he also now move a lot quicker around the board. So it's going to give him access to try and get the things quicker. It's a cool way to let you as a player have the opportunity to catch back up to other players. So if you start to fall behind, you're not just like, oh great, I'm behind already, now I'm going to lose the game. You have a way to catch back up. So he also gets upgraded abilities. Heroic Headbutt, take a stun token. To target a scholar in your zone, not targeted by the skill during this turn. Target scholar randomized to drop an information cube, then collect that information cube. So anything that's highlighted yellow is changed from his other side. So instead of just dropping it, now you automatically get to collect it. Or you can still make them discard a random trick card. But he also has second wind at the end of your turn phase. You can choose to draw less trick cards than you should. For each not drawn, discard a stun token. So you can kind of use his stun ability to like hit multiple guys, mess them up, and then he can, end of his turn, he can hopefully then not do as many efforts, but not have to get stunned again. So it's kind of a neat little mechanic. And then eventually, he catches back up to his stars, he'll cool down, he'll flip back over to his regular side until somebody else gets more stars than him again. So very cool. Alright, up next we have Sophia, the Scum, which is basically like a light version of a rogue. So here is her miniature. Like, I don't know if Scum is an Italian thing, or how they came about that, because they use that in the regular Nova EX games as well. I always just would have called it a rogue or a thief. But it almost seems like that's kind of like, I wonder if Scum is sort of like the idea of a rogue or a thief is someone that's trained, where a Scum is kind of like, just a person who like wander the alleyways or the back routes and like still stealing stuff from you, but they haven't been formally trained yet. Or if that's kind of the idea. She does have the ability rogue. So in her skill stats there, she has 2 students. So she only gets 2 versus him getting 4, because not as many people are gonna follow the CD character. She has a value hand size of 5. She has a speed of 4. She has 2 intelligence, and she has 3 stamina. So a little less stamina. Her combination is blue, blue, and purple. But she has a couple extra abilities here on her card. Or she has an ability on her card, I should say. Says, when you perform an espionage action. So this is when, normally if you're trying to get cubes, you're trying to just research in the regular area of the game. And you're just trying to research the tile you're on to get something from that tile. Espionage lets you instead go after another player and try and take their cubes. So she kind of just, like, where Valerio's trying to maybe knock stuff out and he gets around, she can kind of choose what she wants to do. But she has a couple of effects if she wants to. She doesn't have to sacrifice a student to do it. The idea there is sacrificing a student is you're using them to distract the opponent so you can steal their stuff. The target scholar student doesn't raise their alert value. She gets to ignore how many other students they have. And after you've generated your stealth value, you get a divination 2. So she's going to do a lot more stuff of trying to just get in and maybe take stuff from other players. Let them do the hard work of stealing. Then let me maybe do the easier work of just taking from somebody else. The other kind of advantage of espionage versus just a regular test for trying to get a cube is, in the regular test, every other player gets to potentially play cards to either help or hurt you or benefit or up or down the values. In espionage, it's just you and whoever you're playing against. So now you're only having to deal with one person, so it might be a little bit easier. So what does divination mean? So the little icons down there, it says, during a stealth test, the player reveals any trick cards from the top of their deck, chooses one of the revealed cards, adds their bonus to their stealth value or the zone's alert value. So a stealth test is what she's doing for espionage. She gets to basically draw 2 extra cards and even try and be even stealthier. So she's going to definitely want to do a lot of espionage and stealing from other players. Of course, also keep in mind that if you're stealing from other players, this is also going to make them mad at you. So if you try and do other tests, they're probably going to, like, hit on you twice as hard. If she gets to her enlightened side, which she turns kind of all black, her rogue ability stays the exact same. I love that they've made these different colors so you know exactly what's changing. Scoundrel Speed. You may perform 2 actions during your action phase. So she gets some extra ability to do some more stuff, which is pretty cool. And I think her stats stay pretty much the same. She has her speed go down to 4, actually. And her hand size goes up by 1. So she gets that. Very cool. Alright, then let's look at our third character. We have Vincio, who's the novice. So he's a novice at what? He's a practitioner of the medical or the religious arts. He kind of wants to become like a priest or a doctor. That's Innovatus, if you're not familiar. You play as these characters as basic classes, which they are right now. And then as you level them up throughout the game, playing dungeon crawler, fighting enemies and stuff, they can switch into multiple different classes. So like, he can become a priest or he can become like a medical doctor. I don't remember the exact name off the top of my head. But he has, for his stats, he's going to have 3 students, a little bit in the middle there. 4 hand, 3 speeds, not a lot of speed, 3 intelligence, so 1 higher than the other 2, and 3 stamina. But he needs a pink and a green, or a purple and a green. Purples are hard to get, but greens are super easy. But he has a couple of abilities. So one is, both of them have the lightning bolt, which means you can use them during your opponent's turn as well. So pretty cool. So Sermon, discard a magic trick to gain this effect. What does this effect do? So whenever that has that little symbol, it's gain a number of students from the campaign bonfire. So as we're drawing students throughout the game, they're going to go into a bonfire. I'll show that off after we're done with the 4 characters. they go into this bonfire as kind of like a way to, they're sitting around waiting for you to come help them, gather them to, hey, gunman quest. Hey, we're leaving the camp. You 4 guys come with me. We're going to go out and explore. So this is a way for them to get an extra character. Versus having to draw from the bag. If you have to draw from the bag, you risk drawing a red Omega student, which pushes you closer to the end game. He also has Divine Intervention. He can take a stun token, cannot avoid this by sacrificing a student to divinate twice. So he can basically discard a card to get an extra student, and then he can always take damage. He can't sacrifice some extra students, though. But yeah, take a stun token to get 2 extra bonuses for his stealth tracking. So you kind of get a little bit of studying in there, so it's kind of cool. Alright, let's flip him to the other side. He goes up to Inspired Sermon. Discard a magic trick, gain students equal to the bonus value on the discarded card. So on the top of each card, they're going to have a little number up there because your discards, you have a lot of 1s. We have some 2s, we have some 3s. So he could easily get a bunch of students, which could help him for other effects and doing things there. Could really help keeping him from being espionaged against. Not including for Sophia, but for the other characters, because they count every student up to the alertness. So if he has 5 or 6 students, it could make him really hard to steal against. Divine Intervention stays the same, but he also gets Repent. His action is 1, 2, 3. So if it's a red one, it's a negative with a little scully guy to sacrifice that number of students. So he has to sacrifice 1 to 3. From the zone you are in, collect a number of information cubes equal to the number of sacrificed students. So this is pretty cool. So he can just basically be collecting students using his Inspired Sermon. And he can sacrifice a bunch with Repent to gain information really quickly. Like throw them out there and they take hits for him. So that's pretty cool. But again, once he catches back up to someone in the star level, then he flips back over. So he doesn't get to use his ability infinite. So it might seem like, oh dang, that's pretty broken, or that's pretty like mean compared to everybody else. But as soon as he hits back up to the next star level, he's the same. So his stats are 3, 4, 3, 3, 3, so 3, 5, 4. So he gets some extra speed, and I keep flipping to the other page. I'm trying to remember these off the top of my head. Speed and hand size. Bigger hand size and more speed. So cool. Alright, let's take a look at our 4th and final character in the core set. There are more characters in expansions, as well as the Kickstarter one, so we'll get fun to look at them in later videos. This is Rebecca. She's the apprentice. She's the magic user. She can become just a general magic user, overall a sorcerer, or she can become a necromancer in the Nova Yectus games. Yeah, right now she's just slowly learning her magic. So she has Magic Prodigy. Use the magic trick card bonus value of the cards you played from your hand. Let's say the magic trick card bonus value of the cards you played from your hand count as double for you. So we have, again, all of our different trick cards. We have like exploration, subterfuge, magic, notoriety. She gains double bonus from the magic one. So she specifically wants to collect the magic ones because she gains more things. Now each one has their own extra different abilities, like exploration, like you move around more often. But she wants to get the magic ones for her extra things so you can pass higher skill tests. Research Arcana. So a quick action. Discard a subterfuge trick card, so there she wants some of those too. Reveal up to 5 trick cards from the deck. If you reveal a magic trick card, stop and take it, then shuffle the other drawn cards, push them back on the top of the deck. So cool, she can find some cards. So she's got 3 students, 5 hand size. She's a pretty big knowledge base there. 3 speed, 3 information, and 2 tokens. She can only take 2 hits, but she only needs 2 green and a red. So she can probably get hers not necessarily easier, red or hard, but she has to have 3 cubes. So another thing to kind of mention with the intelligence part is how many cubes you can grab. So on each different tile, this is a reminder, some have 3, some have 2. These are some of the earlier ones. Some of the later ones might have 4. Is you have to take them from one side to the next. But the more cubes you want to take, the higher the alert level is. It's harder. If you just come in and grab one detail at a time, you're probably going to pass almost every time unless someone really sabotages you. But if you want to try and gain 3 or 4 at a time so you don't have to do it, it's going to be a lot harder. But that's what stuff where she has your trick cards. You start counting as double. She has a 3 bonus card. She can count it as 6. She can grab a lot of really high stuff with something like that. So that's pretty cool. She gets those bonuses. When we flip her over, gets a little evilly glare in her eye. She gets Magic Sight. Action. Discard a magic trick card from the zone where you're located. Collect a number of information cubes equal to the sum of the bonus values of the discarded cards up to a maximum of 3. So instead of just upping her bonus, it's just going to straight up let her just take information cubes. That could be very, very helpful. And then Ultimate Research. We have quick reaction. Discard a such abuse trick card, reveal 5 trick cards from the deck, then take all magic trick cards from them, and then shuffle the other cards and place them back on the top of the deck. So now instead of getting 1, she gets all of them, and then she can use them for her action insight. Now, again, her Magic Sight has an action word in front of it, so she can only use it if she has action available. So she can't go and probably do this too many times during a turn. But still, that's a really cool ability. Again, you might say, oh, it's broken. That's a really powerful ability. You can just go ahead and discard 2 or 3, up to 3 cards and get like 3 or 4 cubes. But the idea is, again, if you're behind, because once somebody reaches that second star, they basically can turn their stuff in and win the game. So if you haven't hit your second star at that point, to the point where you can turn your stuff in, this is basically your catch-up mode. Because you might only have 2 or 3 rounds to go before the game is going to end, because it starts on a timer. So yeah, if she's all of a sudden a little bit behind, all of a sudden another guy's like, hey, I hit my second star, my next turn I turn in my thesis, you now have 2 or 3 turns left before the game is going to end. She can just basically be like, oh, I need to get this cube, and this cube. She can just run into the area that has it, boom, 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 discard cards, try and get them in like 1 or 2 shots. She doesn't have to waste time doing stuff. Same thing with some of these other guys. They're just going to be able to try and just get in there and be like, I'm going to get in and try and sacrifice all my people to get stuff, or steal from one of the other players, maybe keep them from getting stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Her hand size goes up by 1, and her intelligence goes up by 1, up to 4. So you can take up to 4 cubes. So those are pretty cool. Alright, so let's look at one of the next things we want to see what we have in here. Is we have our creatures we're looking for. I forgot exactly what they're called. But these are the characters that are the races we're trying to find information about. So we have the Blood Worshippers, who you need 30 points to be able to win. So even if you get 2 stars, you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to win the game. You have to have up to 30 points on your board. As, again, like showing on here, you're going to get, for each cube you have, you get so many extra points. So you want to build up all those. And then afterwards, they're going to give you bonuses based on which ones you have. So if you can do certain things to occasionally reveal these, so you can see ahead of time what they have. And eventually they might get revealed anyhow. But yeah, then you know what your end goal is. So if you're trying to find the Blood Worshippers here, you're definitely going to want to probably try and have a lot of reds, because you're going to get extra bonuses for all your reds. We have the Dancers of the Pandemonium. We only need 28. But yeah, like minus and greens, plus and like the purples are minus 2s. So you probably don't want to have to probably get too many of them. You can only get 2 of them. But it might not even be worth collecting for this guy, because you're going to get such reduced points anyhow. Then the last one are the Chanters of Gaia, which have 25. And again, like I said, lots of other stuff is we have expansions and Kickstarter stuff, which add a bunch more of these. You have more options of stuff to do. So yeah, lots of really. So there's 3 different races we are trying to go after. All right. So this is our campsite. So what we're going to do is, of course, we're going to take one of our cards here. They'll be placed over here so we know which one we're looking for. Keep track of that. It's showing you need 2 stars and this amount to be able to do it. And then you get 10 points, 7 points, 5 points, or 3 points depending on your placement of getting the correct amount. The little bonfire here is, as we do certain things, we'll pull out of the badge here. We have little badges here. We'll pull all of our little students out, and you'll notice most of them are gray. There are a few red ones, which are Omega students. They are physically the exact same, like they have the same miniatures on them. They're just, one's red, one's not. These are the Omega students. They're the bad things. They're going to start triggering endgame stuff. But as you get these regular students, you're going to place them on the bonfire. So as you pull them off, you have to pull 3, and you get 3 of these guys. You put them on here, and then later there's students you can get. So if you don't occasionally pull stuff out of the bag, you're not going to have students available to sacrifice for defensive stuff or for your different abilities or trick cards. So you can't just ignore the fact of never pulling anything out to hope to gain a red one. But it is going to be that interesting thing. And then we have the alert cards. So these are the 4 different difficulties that are in the game. So each one on here, so I'm going to just kind of place this, but they go right on here, so they place on here. Then this little extra spot below it is for your panic cards. So we have 3 panic cards in the game, which are going to add extra endgame difficulties, which we'll look at in just a moment. But let's take a look at what these do. So here on here, it's going to explain what we're going to do. So when you start the game, it's going to tell you all the different stuff in there. I'm going to try and see if I can find the exact... I thought there's a good picture that explained this card. Alright, so the instruction difficulty, average player time. Per player, players may select the difficulty by choosing the alert card to use. The instruction at the beginning of the game must fill the number of university students equal to the number of players multiplied by the indicated number. 16 in the example below. So, like, that's saying, so it's here it's saying 5 per player. So if I'm playing a 4-player game, I'm going to put 20 students in there. So I have 20 in there, and then it's going to be plus the indicated number of N students in the example is 1. So there I'm going to have 1 red student there. So out of every 20, I have a chance of drawing 1 red student. So although there are 5 in the game, you're not going to always use all 5 consistently. And then on C is slots where the Omega students are going to go. So that's these spots right here. So as it says, you get stuff. So fill from the top to the bottom. Instructions: use to refill the university. Only use a line filled by the lowest Omega student. Do not empty the university's. You cannot empty the university before refilling it. The university, which is your bag, must be filled with a number of ordinary students equal to the number of players multiplied by the indicated number, if able. In the reserve. So as you drop if your bonfire gets full, then guys just sit in the reserve and they wait. Plus the indicated amount of Omega students in the example below. So this is for D. So when you start with one thing, and you have to end up refilling your bag, you'd be 2 per player, 1 red student. 3 per player, a red student, so on and so forth. To keep track of that. And then number E, there's the amount of study penalty added to each zone value when performing a studied action. The value to be used in one line, the lowest Omega student. So then as you go through, as you get more and more, it's going to become more and more difficult. You're going to add less and less students. You try and draw more red students as possible. So like the first one that gets on there isn't too bad. You're going to add 3 per player. So again, 4-player game, you'll add 12 back in there, plus 1. No alert level. And then you get to the next one, same thing, but you have 1 and you have a 2 because it's a lot more alert. So it says when Omega students are drawn, resolve the trick trick cards if any. All students present at the bonfire circle and drawing along with the Omega students must immediately be placed in the reserve. The Omega student is placed at the highest free slot of the specified alert card. Player who drew the Omega student draws a face-down Jinx card, which are bag cards, and then refill the bag. The Omega student is drawn, there are no remaining slots on the alert. The alert card must be discarded. So if we draw one, we'll put one of the guys on here, but then we'll add a different red one back to the bag. And you might add more or less as you go through. So yeah, definitely interesting little thing. So let's look at the other difficulties. That's the introductory. This is saying roughly it should take about 20 minutes per player. So again, you're playing a 4-player game, so 2, 4, 6, 8. So expect about an hour 20-minute game. Obviously, it might take a little bit more time if nobody's ever played the game before. So yeah, kind of jump into there just because it's a little bit harder difficulties. You have more things in there. So now easy difficult adds an extra layer in here. So it adds a 1, 2, and a 3 in there. You only have 5 per player, so you have a little bit more. You jump into medium, drops it back down to 20 because there's less stuff. There's less students in there. And then if we want to, you can go to hard mode. Why is hard mode even more? Because it's less time, less things that have less students get added back in. So that means you're going to draw these red ones a little bit quicker. Plus, look, you can get up to 5 difficulties. It's going to be really hard if you get that last Omega student in there to be able to win the game. So yeah, those are our Omega students, or our alert cards. On the back, it's going to have, on the back of all 4, the exact same thing. The maximum alert reminder. So this is page 25. Skip the thesis submission phase. If the scholar ends their turn on the starting zone, they immediately perform the thesis submission, starting with step 2. And end their game. It is no longer possible to perform the rest phase, even though trick card, skill card, zone effects would normally allow it. It is not possible to place new zones or information cubes in any way. So this is a way if you want to, when the game starts to end, because the alert card got filled up, you're no longer trying to, getting to add more into the game. If someone submits their thesis, you can keep go ahead and moving stuff along, but, doing the end game stuff. But if you reach that maximum alertness and now all the creatures are acknowledging you, you can't keep adding new areas, you can't discover stuff. You're basically just having to, grab the last remaining cubes you can and get the heck out of there. End game conditions. If step 4 of the maximum alert is executed, all scholars have finished the game. No more students in the university bag, or there are no more information cubes in any zone. So those are the couple. If you discovered everything, all the scholars have finished. So it kind of happened as well. So interesting. All right, then we have our panic cards. We're going to go ahead and take a look at them. So these, again, just add an extra button. You do not have to use these if you do not want to. They're just going to change the game up at the end of the game. So when you get to... I'm trying to see if I had this spot where it talked about panic cards. I don't have them right here. But that's alright. So the panic cards are basically, instead of ending the regular game and just, the player that first submits their thesis gets to just draw a couple of cards out each turn, and, or draw students out of the bag to try and finish the game up quicker. You can play these panic cards to make the game more difficult. Yeah, so basically it's going to be is, all panic cards of the boss are being inserted, such as any game. Panic cards show the same icon as a dungeon, can be inserted in the deck. Some expansions require only cards in these deck. Using advanced boss rules, you name of the boss, you can instead use the boss one. But yeah, the idea is just to make the end game more insane. Instead of just, hey, I might have 2 or 3 turns while the other guy's pulling stuff out to maybe find the last Omega students, you instead have these extra things. So it changes some stuff. It says empty the university bag and add 2 per player into the bag plus one red student. So you're adding less in there no matter what. You're emptying out. So he's only gonna have a couple of turns regardless. So you're gonna have, again, you're playing 4 players. Now you have 9 things in the bag that he's pulling from instead of maybe before we had 12 or 15. So it's going to make him find that red student a lot quicker. At the beginning of each player's turn, including those who have finished the game, the player must randomize. If the result is worship, riches, or casket, these are your colored cubes that we get. So on the thing, they'll have the different symbols on there. They must remove all information cubes of a color of their choice from all zones. So if it's one of the 3 lower ones that are harder to find, you have to remove all your cubes. So that could really mess up your end game. So the idea is you need to, like, as soon as this darkness patch hits, you need to get out of there as quickly as possible, or you're potentially going to lose a lot of points and maybe not be able to complete your thesis because you lose all your cubes. At the end of each player's turn, if the scholar isn't in the starting zone and is the only one present in a zone, they randomize to lose an information cube. So yeah, when you're at the end of your turn, you either have to be in the starting zone or in a zone with somebody else. Otherwise, you're going to lose stuff. And all the difficulty becomes up to 4. So it's going to make the game a lot harder. Then we have the second, which is Pandemonium, which you have to be playing in an area that has fawns. So if we look at our tiles here, they'll have the fawn picture on them. So they can only be using tiles with fawns. Which says, the fawn leader announces the beginning of the Pandemonium, the festivity of festivals which only they can survive. So here you have 3 per player, and 1 says, discard the boss card, so you no longer play with the boss. If you have them in play. At the beginning of each player's turn, including those who have finished the game, the player must move the boss through 2 linked zones, selecting the zone that contains the most cumulative information cubes, if possible. Player's choice of kind. Move all the cubes from the zone the boss moves through. So now, instead of like you potentially losing stuff like the darkness, here you have to worry about him just stealing all the cubes or eating up all the cubes or whatever you want to call it. So now you might actually not be able to complete certain things because you might lose the cubes you need. When the boss passes through or stops in a zone that contains 1 or more scholars, each scholar must randomize to lose an information cube. And then the last one is a Angered Lacus. So Lacus is our boss. We haven't looked at yet. We'll look at him next. Annoyed by our presence, the Grand Marshal Lacus tries his best to banish you from the Fawn domains. So again, 3 and 1. Discard the boss card. So you're not using the actual boss card anymore, but you have other things to deal with. At the beginning of each player's turn, if their scholar has a number of stun tokens equal to their stamina, their game ends immediately. At the beginning of each player's turn, including those who have finished their game, the player must move Lacus up to 3 linked zones, heading towards the zone that contains the scholar with the least number of stun tokens. When Lacus passes through or stops in a zone that contains any scholars, each of those scholar takes 1 stun token, unless the student is sacrificed. You can keep sacrificing your students to keep yourself from losing, but if he catches up to you too many times, you're eventually going to either just get stunned and knocked out of the game and you can't win, because you won't be able to turn your thesis, or you're going to eventually sacrifice too many students and maybe not be able to perform actions. Now, another thing to keep in mind, though, with these panic cards is they don't just necessarily trigger because someone's done their thesis. These could trigger because the alert card hit the end. And if that hit the end of the thing, then this panic card also triggers as well. So there nobody may have finished their thesis. So it is a potential that the alert card hits maximum. You flip over, you go to the end game, you flip over your panic card, and nobody ends up winning the game because nobody submitted a thesis. So that could definitely be a possibility. Alright, since we're talking about the boss, let's take a look at him. We have the Quarrelsome Lacus. So he has a big old miniature here. Not really much bigger than the rest of the characters, but he is a little bit beefier. Yeah, you got some, like, silverware and stuff. He's getting rid of a knife. He looks like he's probably some sort of chef or cook. Of course, he's got his tankard. Maybe he's a barkeep. But they're all fawns or spriggans, or that type of thing. He's got bread in his backpack. I love that. So yeah, we have him, and he has... So if you want to play with the boss mode, you can. You definitely do not have to. It's always an optional thing. They recommend probably playing the game without it first. So he has a couple of things on here. He has his sighting, which if a scholar enters a zone with the boss effect, the boss model is not yet placed, this effect is activated. So the boss hasn't actually come out yet, this will activate him. And he has a +3, so if you're in the same area as him, he has a +3 to alert, so it's going to be harder to steal in his zone. So his Lacus appears in the zone where the boss zone effect was activated, and activates the encounter. So his next thing is listed on there is activation. Whenever a scholar enters the zone with the boss effect, now that's not... the boss effect is on the tiles. You'll have this little red icon that's the boss thing. So the boss is not in the dungeon with sighting it. They activate, otherwise they follow the activation instructions. So we'll have our various tiles, and eventually some of them will have this. That means the boss will do his activation. So they won't do it every single time, just when you're on those specific things. But what happens then is he moves 3 zones without letting him retrace his steps. He stops if he sees a scholar, or if he must retrace his steps. So he's going to try and move, but if he moves like towards a scholar into a corner, he'll be stuck. So basically, the bigger the map is, the more areas he has to go, or the more they're linked together. And then finally, he has this encounter. When a boss enters a zone containing 1 or more scholars, his effect is activated. Each scholar takes a stun token. So all this is going to kind of basically try and do is walk around stunning you. If you get too many stun tokens, you get sent back to the rest area, which just kind of doesn't really necessarily like defeat your game, but it kind of wastes your turn, because then you have to spend a turn just going back to rest. And then maybe if you're far across the map, throughout the tiles, you have to trace back. He does have an alternate side you can play as, which is Dungeonology, which has only a +2. His sighting and his activation are the same, but now he has a new encounter. It says randomized for each scholar encountered. The scholar drops the information cube in his possession, if you get the yellow one. So again, we're going to have these randomization cards. We're going to look at in the next video a little bit more, but they kind of let you choose different effects without having your players having to decide. If you get the green one, scholar takes a stun token. If you get the red one, scholar discards a random trick card. The blue one, scholar collects information cube from the zone they're in or from an adjacent zone. And the purple one, scholar collects information from any zone. So basically, he's drunk, and if you're in the same area as him, he might like bump into you and make you lose some of your information. You lost a couple of papers. He might bash you in the head, which is the more common one. Because green is more common. He'll give you a stun. Red's the next most common. He might just make you discard one of your cards. But you get one at the bottom two, you actually get bonuses. So this might be the easier version of him to fight, which is kind of a neat idea. You get like multiple versions to fight against. Alright, so I think that's what we're going to call for this video. We went through our characters, we went through our bosses, some of our other modes and stuff. So video part 2, we're going to go through our Jinx cards, our randomization, our intern cards. We have a couple of miniature decks there, as well as our big giant stack of trick cards. We'll go through all of those, and we'll take a closer look at all the tiles and some of the abilities on them. So I hope you guys come back and check out part 2. See you guys there. Bye.